One. Hey, what's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to another episode of a Frugal Athlete podcast. Today, we got a very special guest, technically a family friend because I'm really close with his younger brother. We got Julian Valentin, currently head of athlete partnerships and branding for Opendorse. But outside of that, former professional soccer player, father, husband, just all around great guy. Julian, how you doing today?
I am awesome. This is really cool for me. I appreciate you wanting to have me on here and just chat a little bit. This is it's kind of like seeing somebody grow up in front of your eyes, and it's just awesome to watch your journey and see all the amazing things that you're doing in your life. So super proud of you and excited to be on today.
No, thank you, man. So it's really a pleasure to have you on because obviously I talked about my relationship with Zarek, and shout out to Zarek. I'm sure he's going to be listening to this. But you were one of the older guys, so you were always a roadmap for, how we wanted to live out our careers. And a lot of times with the Frugal Athlete, it's important to follow roadmaps because that's how we know what's successful versus what's not. But for the people that don't know you, take us back, because I've obviously seen the ride, but for people that may not be familiar with what you're all about.
So Zarek and I grew up, and my older brother Zach as well, in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. So we're from Amish country, small town, if you want to call it that. And we were, always soccer players. My older brother was a runner and, kind of blazed a trail for us. But I started to take off in soccer and moved down to Bradenton, Florida, and did the residency thing. That's where you and Zarek kind of connected and started your journeys together. And, I think, my journey is very similar to yours in that I never wanted to just be an athlete. I never wanted to just be somebody who was playing sports, didn't care about anything else. And I was always really interested in storytelling, writing, anything media related. I was always involved with my team and had some great mentors along the way that kind of showed me how I could leverage that when I was playing. So when the time came, it was 2010. I was playing for the Tampa Bay Rowdies in the off season. And, I'd just been married and, I wasn't really looking to move on or looking to retire, but I got a great opportunity with the Colorado Rockies. And because of that work that I had put in throughout my career while I was still playing, I was able to make that step and enter the business world in the time that I did. So, I played at Wake Forest University before that, 4 years there, won a national championship, played for the Galaxy in Major League Soccer for a couple of years. Although I would say playing is a bit of an aggressive word. I was on the team. I didn't play much, but then I went to Tampa where I started that transition. And after that, I moved to the Colorado Rockies, hung them up, took a job as kind of leading the digital strategy there back in the early days of social. Over the years, kind of accumulated more things in terms of player relations, communications, PR, publications, all that. Spent 10 and a half years there, and then just came over to Opendorse a little less than a year ago, and absolutely love what we're doing here and the impact that we're making for athletes around the world. So that's my journey real quick. Obviously a lot more to it, but we don't have all day to talk. So figure out
most definitely. And I feel like you're shortchanging yourself. So you were a top prospect. You went to residency, U17 national team, U20 World Cup, and you decided to go to Wake Forest. Was that always the initial plan? You talked about being more than an athlete. Obviously, there's different companies like Uninterrupted that kind of push that mantra, more than an athlete. Was that a reason why you chose like Wake Forest and going to school for all 4 years like you did?
It was. And it's funny because every year I considered leaving early. I considered skipping school from the beginning. Back then, Generation Adidas or Project 40, even before that, it was like you could make more money. You had more contract security by leaving early. But I always wanted to get the full experience. I wanted to make sure I was set up for life after the game. And yeah, it was a great ride. I did choose Wake because of the high quality educational experience there. I wanted to engage. I wanted to have small class sizes. I wanted to make sure that I could walk across campus and recognize people because that's the kind of personality that I have. I like the relationship side of things. So that's why Wake made a lot of sense to me and is the best decision I could have made and really set me up for life, long term. So yeah, I always cared about the educational side of things. I always wanted to be more than just an athlete, and that decision to go to school and then actually engage there and try and make the most of it was a big part of it.
No, I love that. You talk about, not only long-term, but using sports as a vehicle. So you had a purpose for why you were making the decision. And obviously, I know we're going to get into it later with NIL. I think that decision will be a little bit easier as some players are getting paid and compensated and having more resources available to them. One question I want to ask you though, Galaxy, you do well there. Tampa Bay, you do well there. And you say this job just came about. Were you actively like searching for it? How did like this job just come about?
So my wife is a physical therapist. She was also a student athlete at Wake Forest. So we're Demon Deacon family, and she's amazing. So she finished her doctorate degree in physical therapy, moved out to Tampa with me, and started just a grind of a first job, like long hours, pretty big commute, and she wasn't loving it, wasn't loving the lifestyle. We were in a small little apartment, and it just wasn't what we hoped it would be. So I could tell she was kind of grinding a little bit, wasn't super enthusiastic about what was going on. So, she was like, why can't you just like look for jobs or something to, see if there's anything else out there. And, I didn't have a resume. I wasn't looking to move on. It was just to kind of make her happy and get her off my case a little bit. I did. And Denver is always where we wanted to settle. We're in Colorado here still. She grew up here. We know the family atmosphere and the family environment. And this is just where we wanted to settle down. And I knew sports was something that I was interested in. I kind of knew my skill set. So I put together a resume, threw together some writing samples, saw a job with the Colorado Rockies. It was, at that time, it was kind of like an internal journalist position where you would just, write about the team and, do our magazine and stuff like that. And that digital media was just tacked onto the end of the job title, because in those days, in 2011, that was like the new frontier and nobody knew what social and digital would become. So, yeah, I mean, it was pretty random. I put together a resume, interviewed a few times, and I'm just grateful that they took a chance on me and believed in me, because I wasn't the best person on paper. I wasn't the most qualified, but they saw something in me and gave me a chance. And I've always remembered that. And I always try to make sure that I pay that forward. There might be somebody that we're talking to as a hiring manager now that maybe isn't the best person on paper, or somebody's more qualified or has more experience, but somebody needs a chance. You got to give somebody an opportunity. And I always try to keep that in mind. So I was lucky that others did that for me. And I'm glad that now I'm in a position where I can do that for others.
I love that. You talked earlier about storytelling and crafting your story and how important that is to you and your quality with that. But a lot of times athletes struggle with, all right, I played soccer or I played basketball for 5, 10, 20 years. How do I craft that into a resume? So what were some things that you applied from sport and school as well to tell your story within, getting those doors open for you?
Sure. Yeah, the first thing I think about are three things. I always think about, right in that moment, you have to think about who you are. Like, what are the things that you're into? What's important to you? How do you use your time? Write that down on a piece of paper and think about like what your life looks like in that moment. Once you know who you are in that moment, go back in time a little bit and think about who you were in the past. So where have you come from? Where did you grow up? What was your family like? How have you evolved and grown over time? Like, what are your favorite subjects in school? All that kind of stuff. And once you have that kind of written down and in your mind, like who you are and who you were, that's when you kind of think about who you want to be in the future and how you want to craft that narrative for yourself. So that's what I always think about. It's who you are, who you were, and who you want to be. But it takes time and it takes effort. You have to really be mindful of it. You have to think about why you are the way that you are and how you want to shape your future. So that's what I always recommend. When we talk about brand building or building your brand for athletes, it can be a little intimidating at times, but it really is just sharing your personality, sharing your interests, the things that are important to you, what you're doing in your daily life. And it doesn't have to be this big, intimidating or scary venture. It really is just packaging up who you are and then sharing that in the world in an appropriate way that you're comfortable with.
I love that. I just had to write that down. Who you are, who you were in the past, and who you want to be. I think that 3-step formula can really help you not only craft your story, but build your brand. What was the immediate transition like? So now you kind of go cold turkey, get the job, probably weren't halfway expecting it. You get it. You guys, family moves to Denver, Colorado. What was that adjustment like? And can we take any advice from you? A lot of times people struggle that first 1 to 3 years of post-retirement, post-playing. How were you able to kind of do it so smoothly?
It wasn't smooth. It was hard. It took a lot of soul searching in some ways. And it wasn't until I really fully committed to being a great business professional and being in the moment in what I was doing and building with the Rockies where I really started to take off. Because there was about a year and a half where I was still kind of 1 foot in, 1 foot out. You know, I could train for a few months and come out of retirement. And, you know, we joked about it before we started recording, like, I'm 35 years old, I'm fit, you know, I'm still stronger than ever. Like, there's a part of me that's like, you know, me and Zarek, let's play for Puerto Rico together, give Dave Sarakin a call and like, let's see if he'll bring us in. I know that's not realistic anymore, especially because I just had ankle surgery and nose surgery. So I finally getting the body taken care of. But yeah, I was half in, half out for a little while. And that's not a great way to live your life if, you know, if you're trying to be great at anything. So once I fully committed to being a strong business professional, learning as much as I could, you know, using the resources around me, whether it's, you know, smart use of social media, reading books, you know, talking to other professionals, that's when I really started to take off and craft my identity as a professional. So yeah, it's hard. You have to know that there's going to be days where you might question your decision, that you might, you know, watch your friends play or somebody that, you know, you're still better than that. I could take this guy, I'll kick this guy around a bit. But, you know, I think of not having to worry about being cut or traded. Stability for my family was really important. And, you know, it was the perfect decision for me, even though it took me a little while to really have that peace inside of me.
No, I think that's great advice. And you touched on all the things that I talk about when it comes to, you know, that 1 foot in, 1 foot out, feeling like you could still play. It never goes away. You just got to find your second game. And for you, you've done that, you know, in my eyes, you know, tremendously. When it comes to, sorry, go ahead.
I just said, thank you. Appreciate it.
I appreciate that. When it comes to, obviously a frugal athlete, so we got to talk about money management.
Let's go.
It was cold turkey. How did you prepare, you know, from a money management standpoint, or what are some money management lessons or principles that you applied for your career? And then obviously as you transition out.
So I'm naturally frugal, if you will. I would call myself a cheap ass, if I can use that word on the pod.
Oh yeah.
But frugal is the way that I live my life. I think that's the way I was raised. I'm very thoughtful with my money. The best decision I ever did was collect as much as I could when I was still playing. And I had enough essentially for a down payment on my first house. Mm-hmm. So I didn't have to take out a huge loan. I had most of what we needed for putting it down for our very first house. We moved out here in 2011. The real estate market was pretty beat up at that time. So we got a short sale house in 2011, June of 2011, got in at like literally the perfect time. So as soon as we bought, the values here in Denver just absolutely skyrocketed. So the value that we had was able to grow and grow and grow through real estate. You know, we kept that, we rented it out, we bounced around because we needed more space. So, you know, being a landlord was kind of interesting, different. But what we were able to do with that first starter home was then have the funds once we sold it to create this opportunity to build a house about 15 minutes away. So now, because of that, you know, being smart when I was playing, having that down payment money, we were able to parlay that into, you know, I would call this our dream home. You know, this is my dream home. It's more than I had growing up. It's, you know, you always want to have more for your kids than you had growing up. And I'm glad and blessed that I've been able to do that for my children. So that's my, you know, real estate success story, if you will. But it was just luck. It was timing, but also that preparation too. It wouldn't have happened without the foresight of, you know, just being really smart when I was in that moment on the field.
The lesson I take away from that is the leverage. You know, you're thinking smart while you're playing, maximize the opportunity and compensation for what you wanted out of life. And you knew that you wanted your dream home eventually, but you didn't get there right away. You get with the starter home, and the timing was perfect. And then from there, parlayed it into something where, you know, you and your family are more than comfortable, and it is exactly what you guys wanted.
The other thing I would add real quick is, like, just by nature, I don't really care about stuff. You know, I still have a lot of the same clothes that I did 10 years ago. My wife is finally trying to, you know, make me buy some nice athleisure stuff and step up my game a little bit. You know, I was talking to my staff the other day, like, my car is 10 years old because, especially now, I don't drive anywhere. I fill up the tank once a month. So I never cared about what other people thought about me and the things that I had. And I just had that peace in myself. And I would always prefer to use my money for experiences and things that we can enjoy as a family or friends, or, you know, I can travel now. We can do vacations now that I don't work in baseball. So those are always the things that I valued, is just, you how I can use my funds for the people around me and creating things that we can enjoy together, as opposed to flashy things that, might look good for people I don't even know or care about.
I love that. Can't live like the Joneses,
That's right.
Let's get into Opendorse. 10 years with the Colorado Rockies, right? Or climbed up the ladder, did your thing. How did this opportunity come about? And speak to what Opendorse is all about.
Yeah, first, how it came about. It was a great kind of experience of networking and knowing people and putting yourself out there. So everybody knows Blake Lawrence and Adi. They're OGs in this business. They've been doing it for a long time, and I've just always had a ton of respect for Opendorse and what they built and what they're all about, the culture of the people, everything about it. I just, from the outside, I would consider myself a fan of the brand and the work that they were doing. So I had a kind of a weird moment with the Rockies where I was just kind of feeling stuck professionally, and I was ready for that next step. I started to feel like I was losing my edge and losing my energy. And I just reached out to Blake and was like, hey, that I think the world of you and everything at Opendorse. If you ever have any interest or change in the marketing department, I would be interested in having a conversation. So it was a Twitter DM, it was a reach out, but we had that kind of casual relationship where we always kind of kept in touch. And I'm lucky that one thing led to another. There was some change in the marketing department, and it just kind of ended up happening. So I think that's another example of just how you set yourself up for what those opportunities could be. So a 15-minute conversation or a direct message or a tweet here and there can turn into something substantial. And I always tell student athletes, like, the best NIL deal that you can possibly get is a full-time job. And I think that my experience is proof that, you can build that resume, build that portfolio, if you will, and then create opportunities for yourself in a professional sense.
I love that.
Opendorse is the athletes NIL company. We've been doing it for a long time. And really, in a basic sense, we help athletes understand, build, protect, and monetize their NIL value. So Opendorse has been doing this at the professional level since 2012. Prince Mukamara was the first person that Opendorse helped. And now we help over, almost 100,000 athletes every day in our platform. So with NIL at the college space, it's created a great opportunity to help educate student athletes about the opportunities that are available to them. And that's a big part of my job is trying to show how we can help and how they can take advantage of this opportunity in their lives to really do something special with their brand and for their families.
No, it's really cool. Real quick, before we dive in deeper to, what you and Opendorse are doing and the impact you guys are having, I think it's very valuable. You said the best NIL deal is a full-time job. That is great because 98% of college student athletes aren't going to go pro, but you're going to go pro in life. So how are you going to take advantage and maximize your opportunity while you have it? And then shooting your shot, if you don't shoot, you don't score. Obviously your reputation has to, hold value and hold true. But take advice from what Julian did, a simple Twitter DM and, led to his next position. So if there's anything to take away from this episode, I highly recommend that, that line is really valuable.
Appreciate that. I would also add that, as a hiring manager now, one of the very first things that I do is I look at the social accounts of the people that are applying for roles that I might be hiring for. So that is truly a resume. You think of your Instagram, your Twitter as a resume that, in my opinion, can be even more important than what you put on the typical piece of paper or cover letter, because that's real you, that's daily you, that's kind of unfiltered. But if you think about it in a way that is filtered and you're being strategic about how you leverage that platform, it can be extremely, extremely effective. So think about those social accounts as a resume and just know that everybody's going to look at that and draw conclusions about who you are based on that public online perception.
No, everyone's watching, and it's great advice. I've got it on the soccer field too. Like, there's been coaches will be coming to scout a player, and the way they warm up or the way they present themselves, they get cut before even trying out. And the same holds true for social media. So, like you said, how you present yourself is, how people perceive you, and you never want to judge a book by its cover, but at least, make it where someone wants to at least pick up the book and then hopefully open the pages. So
that's right.
So let's get into Opendorse as a company helping NIL. For some folks, some folks still don't know what NIL is, but essentially it's name, image, and likeness. Talk about like the total landscape and the opportunity that student athletes have when it comes to this phenomenon.
It is. Phenomenon is a good word. It's great. I think a lot of the headlines and a lot of the flashiness of the NIL era right now is based on those high-end deals, the Power Five quarterback, or the women's basketball player who's making millions of dollars with these high-end deals. But what I love about NIL is that it provides every single athlete with the opportunity to make the most of this moment. So if you're a 2-year starter, 4-year starter, if you play in the NAIA, which is one of our partners, we partner with the entire NAIA and help their athletes. Like, you can finally host a camp in your own name. You can finally make a little bit of money off of some social media posts. And while most student athletes are not going to make millions of dollars, they can very easily make thousands of dollars by engaging in this. And I know when I was a college student, I would have taken $100 in my back pocket for a good night out, or free dinner down at the La Coretta. Shout out La Coretta in Winter, North Carolina. Pat Phelan and I used to go there all the time. Like, if I could walk in there for the 3 beef taco special once a week and tweet something about it or put it on my IG story, Patty and I would have done that every single day. So these are real opportunities that student athletes have now. Once you get away from thinking that it has to be like these mega deals, just invest in those moments and really build that portfolio of what it looks like and the opportunities you can create. The other thing I would say about NIL is it's allowed student athletes to learn real life experience and learning how to handle their finances, how to look at a contract, how to do all those things that maybe are missed in terms of formal education. So that's something that we tackle from an educational standpoint at Opendorse, that I'm proud of the work that we do in that area. But it is real life experience that student athletes are learning that is important for life after sport as well.
No, I love that. And definitely, I think you would have been one of the few folks back in the day to make some serious money. Those Wake Forest teams were really good, and obviously the community there. Is there any specific case study or partnership that you're most proud of, so far with Opendorse?
Boy, I'm lucky to see a lot of this stuff up close. The one that comes to mind, though, that I love, I got to shout out Muchachos Tacos. So Muchachos Tacos is a small little, it's a local restaurant in Lincoln, Nebraska. It started as a food truck, and then Nick, the owner, has a brick and mortar store now. And early on in the NIL era, I want to say like a month into it, he created an Opendorse account and wanted to work with some Nebraska student athletes. Just kind of sent some deals like, hey, I'm a fan of yours. You want to come work with me? And specifically, one of the women's volleyball players, Nicklin Hames, was like, yeah, I'd love to do a partnership. I'm a fan of your restaurant, and they linked up for a deal. It was cool to see a student athlete want to engage in that local business and see the local business want to engage in the athletes. So this was early on, and the return was incredible. It was like went viral, completely on social media. Everybody could kind of see this unfolding as both were interacting and talking about it. And, just a really strong partnership between those two that had strong ROI, especially from the business side, but also for the athlete who cared about supporting local business as part of her brand. And then the second part of it, because of the success, Muchachos took it to the next level and actually partnered with the entire offensive line of the football team and created a menu item. There was a percentage of sales that went there. So it was started as kind of like a random thing, kind of dipping your toe in the water. And as everybody got more comfortable and understood what was going on and really saw the potential of what could be there, it just really blew up. So that's one that always comes to mind because it was the first one I was kind of like geeking out over. Yeah. But I love the deals that are really impactful for, for what they stand for, for community activations and charity, giving back to charity. I love all those things. And, again, it's just awesome to have those opportunities available.
No, I love that. I know we can't get too much into the details, but can you talk about how athletes can, better position themselves for potential deals on Opendorse as a platform?
Sure, I could talk about that. The biggest thing is, first and foremost, you want to make sure, regardless of what platform you're on, you have a well put together profile. Think of it like, like an Airbnb. Like if you're trying to sell your house on Airbnb or have somebody rent it out, and you've got these like dark photos and like dilapidated stuff or like incomplete details about like what your house is like, you're not going to get a ton of interest. So make sure that profile is nice and tight on Opendorse specifically, but also your social profiles. Like, think about that as, again, that window to who you are and in a way that you're going to kind of sell yourself. The biggest and best thing that athletes can do, not only through Opendorse, but all potential NIL partnerships, is to do a little bit of self-marketing. And again, that's one of those skills that you learn. You learn how to present yourself in a way that's intelligent, make it not selfish or, about yourself too much. But you got to put yourself out there a little bit, because in most cases, you're not just going to have companies throwing stuff at you. You're going to have to put a little bit of work in it. So I would recommend, putting your Opendorse account in the bio of your accounts. Just every once in a while, throw something out on your Instagram story or Twitter and just say, hey, I'm open for conversations for NIL partnerships. These are the things I'm interested in, because how is anybody supposed to know that you're into it if you don't say it? So those are easy things that you can do. And that's not just Opendorse, that's just best practices in terms of marketing yourself and being strategic about how you put yourself out there. And then the other thing I would say is, once you do start to put together a little brand portfolio of partnerships that you secured, try to highlight them and show the work that you're doing, because brands will want to see proof of concept, and they'll want to see, like, this is what I could expect for working with this partnership. Or, if it's Instagram story, you can create a little highlight there at the top. So that way, people can see the past stories that you've done. Don't delete your content, keep it out there so that brands can see what they can expect from a partnership with you. So those are some quick things. They're not hard, but again, you got to step out of your comfort zone a little bit and recognize that only like 0.5% of athletes are going to have just all these deals thrown their way, and most people are going to have to put in a little bit of work.
No, I love that. You guys have been like forward thinkers in the space before NIL was even, a Supreme Court issue. You guys were already, talking about the next step, the next frontier. For the people that kind of have been naysayers in the NIL space, it's ruining college sports, it's ruining the team landscape. Players don't know what to do with their money. What would you say to some of those, I don't want to say haters, but some of those people that aren't as informed about the NIL space?
Yeah, first thing I would say is to answer the first part, or how you set up the question. We've been doing this for a long time, and NIL is new to college sports, but it's not new to sports. NIL has been around for hundreds of years. When baseball players were on cards in tobacco containers, like way back in the day, like that's NIL. They were making money off of tobacco endorsements, like in 1900s. So 1800s. So NIL has been around forever. It's new for college sports with this new legislation, but Opendorse specifically, like, we existed in the pro space for 9 years before it even flipped on for student athletes. So that's one thing that I think is important to know, is that there are a lot of companies that are diving into this and being opportunistic, and there's a lot of companies that are doing a great job as well. Like, shout out everybody who's trying to help athletes and worrying about things in the right way and really doing it for the right reasons. So just wanted to call that out first. In terms of the naysayers, I think time will tell in terms of what this really looks like from, all different aspects 5 or 10 years from now. But how can we think it's bad for a student athlete to learn, life lessons like money management in real life, and learn how to, structure a business, or learn about contracts or creating LLCs? Like, these are things that aren't really taught in school in a lot of ways, unless it's a specialized class. So this is real life experience. Most student athletes have some stuff to learn. They need to learn that, $600, you need to file taxes. Like, those are things that we do and others do from a basic educational standpoint. But just like anything, if you go into it with the mentality of thinking it's going to be bad or detrimental, you can find ways to be, to have that be the case. But if you come in with a positive attitude and thinking that it's going to be a great learning opportunity, and it's something that is honestly just a God-given right that student athletes should always have been able to have, then you're going to have the right perspective. So, I like to focus on positive instead of the negative. So that's just the way I'm wired. But just like anything in life, whatever you want to think about it, that's usually what it's going to be. So I think about the good things.
No, that's good. It's good to have a positive mindset, especially in this space that, gives so many opportunities to the whole spectrum and whole ecosystem of student athletes. As we get to our close, what advice, or if there was like a playbook of things that you would recommend for student athletes or even professional athletes to learn right off the bat, whether it's, with NIL, whether it's with brand partnerships, whether it's with transition, what would those things be, and why?
I think one thing that I would say is that there's no right or wrong way to do NIL. I think a lot of people think that you have to be really thoughtful and have a well-developed brand. And certainly as a brand coach and somebody who's done this for a long time and take a lot of pride in like the brand that I have, of course, I'm going to say that's important, but it's also okay to just make the most of this moment and secure partnerships and whatever's out there. If you can do $10, $50 deals, like that adds up. So I think that, one piece of advice is just remembering that there's no right or wrong way to do this. It truly is what you feel and what is comfortable and appropriate for you and your situation and your family. And the last thing that I would say, and this is one of the first things that I talk about on our student athlete education sessions. We have lots of partners. Bree Cassidy is our director of NIL education and does a phenomenal job, but we talk a lot about mental health right at the top of our presentations and how important it is to take care of your mentals, because NIL is great. It can alleviate a lot of stress by creating financial freedom and flexibility in that moment, but it can also add a lot of pressure and another thing on the student athlete's plate, another thing that they have to worry about, or another pressure. They look at what this person's doing or what that person's doing and wonder like if they're up to speed. So it's everybody's individual situation is something that they have to bear in mind at all times. And, talk to your circle, talk to your people, make sure that you're being open and honest with how you're feeling. And, we get into a little bit more in depth, but the mental health side of things is so, so important. And it should never be forgotten about. It honestly should be the first thing that is spoken about with this, because student athletes are in their moment. They're juggling so many things, including relationships, school, sports. And this is another thing on top of that they have to, be really strategic about how they handle it.
No, I love that. No, that's a great way to close. We had this new segment, and I think you would be great for it because of the way you were able to transition.
Okay.
We call it soft skills to hard skills, and shout out to the Shift Group because they're an organization that help athletes transition into software sales. So we had a partnership with them, or we do have a partnership with them, and we came up with this concept as like kind of a rapid fire. So I wanted to include you in it.
Shout out Shift Group. Let's do it.
A lot of times you talked about, crafting your story and your transition and telling your story on your resume. I want to like provide a role or something that you do in sport, and then I want you to be able to translate it for a resume or for job and like, in better wording, if that makes sense.
I got you.
So we call it soft skills to hard skills.
Okay. So I was a center back. The key role of a center back is organizing and communicating. Yeah. I realized along the way that all the things that I had as a player, like my hard skills on the field, so to speak, were lacking. I wasn't the cleanest technically. I wasn't the fastest dude. I could jump and I was tenacious, but all the stuff that made me a successful player were things that translated into the business world. So as a center back, it was about communication, organization, being a leader and kind of hyping everybody up and getting the team rallied around. So that's what I would say is all those different skills, those intangibles, taking those from the field to the business world, because that stuff plays. All that stuff can translate very easily to life off the field.
Perfect. I love it. And I was going to say, identify communication, because that's what you're known for. Also your brother. One other one, how about being a team captain? I know you're a team captain for multiple teams. How do you translate that into something to tell on your story?
I took a lot of responsibility in being a captain, and I've been thinking a lot about leadership in the last year or so, and I think what I've realized is that being a really good leader is about being what you need to be for everybody. And it can be exhausting, it can be a grind, it can be a lot of time spent in terms of figuring out what that looks like. But if you're a CEO, you need to make sure that you're providing everybody who reports to you what they need. So some people, for example, need tough love and they need constant coaching. Other people like independence and freedom. So it's trying to recognize how you can help and support everybody around you to get the best out of them. So I think that's a captain's role. Captain is, I don't believe a captain should be the best player in the field all the time. It should be whoever is that leader, that the charismatic person that everybody goes to. They're a good listener. They're a good communicator. And I think that that's all in the business world applies too. So if somebody comes to me, can I provide advice? What do they need from me? How can I help them on their journey? What can I be doing to get the best out of them for themselves, for me, and for the company?
Oh, I love that. Thank you so much. If anyone wants to connect with you, how can they connect with you? Follow all the wonderful stuff that you're doing.
Yeah, I'm on Twitter's my go-to. I locked down my Facebook and Instagram. That's private space, but Twitter is where you can find me. The DMs are open. Student athletes, I'm always accessible. I'll hit you back on the DMs if you tweet at me. That's the spot where you can find me. So, shout out Opendorse. I'm proud of the work that we're doing, proud of the team that we have and the waves that we're making in this space. So anything Opendorse related, just keep an eye on that too.
Most definitely. And thank you so much. There you have it, folks. Julian Valentin. Make sure you guys follow him on the socials. Make sure if you don't already have an Opendorse account, definitely take the time to make one. There's probably a 95% chance your school's already on the platform, but definitely, sign up for that. Lots of great education, lots of great opportunities. And as an athlete, specifically as a student athlete, take advantage of those 4 to 5 years. It can be the springboard to the rest of your life. So we're going to have all this information in the show notes, and we appreciate you guys once again. If you guys would love to help us out, please subscribe. Please leave a review. It helps us continue to get wonderful guests like Julian. But once again, Julian, thank you so much, and we'll definitely be in talk soon.
It was my pleasure. I got to get one of the jar shirts too. I'm going to hit up.
Oh yeah, we got you.
No, I'm going to buy it, dude. I don't accept handouts.
Okay, appreciate that. We're going to have that in the show notes as well. So make sure you guys check it out if you want one of these hoodies.
That's it.